never really intersected until he got to the World Series. And now, obviously, since 1993, there's been a lot of commonality in baseball just between the Blue Jays and Phillies. Obviously, there was that World Series could have went either way. Obviously, it came down to something that literally has only happened one other time in Major League Baseball history to, send the Sky Dome off the way it did. But that series, Lenny Dykstra was probably the biggest thorn in anybody's side in any Major League Baseball team in a World Series ever. And that team itself was very impressive. And especially after, correct me if I'm wrong, they were actually the last place team the year before.
Yeah, the year before.
Flipped the script.
Yep.
Yeah,
they were always a long team. Well, I was a junior in high school, so I was a huge Phillies fan, obviously. And it was wild because that team was really a bunch of misfits. Like, I've seen so many documentaries in Philly about that team. And like John Kruk is like one of the on-air announcers now. He does a great job in Philly, and he brings up stories all the time. But that team was just like, it was for a town like Philly that's so blue collar, it like just matched the personality of the town too. Because you have guys that are like drinking beers after games, just like going out there hungover, just hitting bombs, and Lenny Dykstra running into walls and just stealing bases all over. But it's funny because you said like when they played the American League teams back then, like the All-Star game was a big deal back then because you got to see the American League players. Like we never saw them.
That's crazy.
You never saw like TV like we do now, like Major League Baseball. You watch any game, where the World Series was really the first time we saw the Blue Jays play ever in '93. Like we had no idea. You don't know anything about them, and it's really, really cool. Yeah, so much fun. But I mean, interleague,
a random matchup at that point.
Yeah, so random. So random.
That All-Star game, I think that's funny that you mentioned that perspective on the All-Star game, because I think it was it might be 92, but it was 1993, I think. Kruk versus Randy Johnson, first time ever. It's still one of the best baseball highlights anybody can watch, because Randy Johnson obviously being the flame-throwing lefty, John Kruk being a lefty who normally would not hit against that kind of he's sitting there like checking his heart and making sure Randy just threw one right over his head.
I know, and he switched his helmet around and went on the other side. Like, yeah, that's a classic moment those times. But it's funny, that Blue Jay World Series, though, I always tell the story because when I went to the big leagues 2001, I always say Cito Gaston was our bench coach. And I remember you obviously spent a lot of time with these guys, so I talked to him about the '93 World Series. I think I was telling you about the story last time I was on, about how, I was telling him how big of a Phillies fan I was then. He was telling me the story about, I guess whoever was up after Joe Carter had a broken finger, and he had nothing but pitchers left to pitch hit, and he didn't know what he was going to do. And Carter hit the home run. He's like, I never had to worry about it. And I remember hearing that story, being like, wow, that's talking about inside baseball right there.
Yeah.